All right, welcome. Toshio Miller here from Warrior Concepts and OnlineNinjaAcademy.com. This week's episode of KUDEN Radio. I had a little bit of a technical glitch there for those of you on video. Thought we were ready, and apparently we were not. Anyway, all right, so I want to get a little bit more technical this time around. So we'll talk about techniques a little bit, but as usual, we're going to be straddling the whole martial and life realms. Okay, so to start this off, and again, these quotes tend to get attributed across the board. I can tell you who I got one from and who I think might. I mean, they're one of the people that have been attributed. Anyway, so for those of you who've been following along, when I sent the emails out and the little graphic that I make and whatnot, right? So one of my military leaders a while back, a long time, I just realized that I've been out of the military for 35 years. Wow, holy crap. James, that makes you older than me. No, it doesn't. Anyway, so what he used to say was, hope is not a strategy. Hope is not a planning strategy. Hope is not a success strategy. I had several different ways to say this. And along the way, when I would, see this thing, and then again, kind of planning for this episode, I saw that sometimes this is attributed to the great football coach, Vince Lombardi. Not that I'm a big football watcher. I know. What kind of a man am I? Anyway, what he would say, he said, and again, I'm probably going to get this out of order, but his longer quote was that luck is not a consideration, hope is not a strategy, and fear is not an option. Now, I know how hoorah that sounds, but I'm not discounting it altogether, right? Because hope can provide inspiration. Now, what's that old saying? Without hope, all is lost. That kind of thing. But while it can provide inspiration, it should be complemented with strategic thinking and deliberate action. Damn, there's that thought, word, and deed thing again. Keeps sneaking up on us. All right. So the idea is that you need to have a plan, but you also need to believe that you can accomplish or have or do the thing that you want to have or to accomplish or do, right? Only having one side of the equation it can set us up for all kinds of things, right? So anyway, what I want to take a look at during this episode is we're going to take a look at the dual mandala, right? The ninja's dual mandala in our Mikkyo study, just from a really big standpoint. We're not going to dive into them or do anything specific, but I want to take a look at these two as two really important focal points in a given plan. And we need to take a look at a process, it's a strategic process that acts as a bridge connecting the two, okay? And what I have found is that with all three of these things, right, you never not know what to do. You never not kind of get sidetracked. Well, life sidetracks us anyway, but not in the same way that a lot of people get sidetracked, right? And this is actually encompassed in the Goma fire ceremony that we do. It's an active meditation that we do at various times during the year, specifically in the new year. But it's a huge part of Mikkyo practice, right? It actually constitutes the fourth of four stages. And within that fourth stage, there are seven different, not practices, but levels, right? And so it's this, again, it goes right back to this plan for accomplishing things, right? So we're going to take a look at that and more, obviously, as soon as we get back. Question is this:
How are self-defense and success-minded people like us, concerned citizens worried about protecting ourselves, our loved ones, and the things we care about from the monsters we know exist in the world? How do we train in a way that gives us the skills, knowledge, and understanding we need without becoming paranoid fighters or killers ourselves, and yet still allows us to be the hero protector the world needs us to be? That's the question, and this podcast will give you the answers. My name is Jeffrey Miller, and welcome to KUDEN Radio, real training for real people in a real world.
All right, we are back and we are rolling. So, got James James in his little corner over there. James is doing his thing, making sure that things are rolling in the background. So, again, before I get too far into this, let me not forget what I usually forget, right? Please like, share, subscribe, even if nothing else, right? Share the link or whatever later on with a friend who you know is working on the same thing that you are, regardless of whether they're in Ninjutsu or martial arts or whatever. Because most of these KUDEN, they're just as much about life as they are about martial arts. Okay, so anyway, let's roll this thing out. James, who do we have on? Do we have anybody that signed in yet that I could say hi to? I normally, for those of you who are new to this, I normally don't bring up the chat thing because I'm still traumatized from early on when we brought the chat thing up, and it was integrated with what you could see if you're on the video side, you could see it, and just had some freaking jackwagons that hijacked the chat, and now we have the capability. James has the capability of pushing a button and blocking someone actually on the platform where they're being stupid. So we can block them 4 ways from Sunday, whatever, right? 4 ways from Iga. How about that? We just joked about that earlier when I was originally training with Stephen Hayes in this little burg called Germantown, Ohio. It's this little farming community outside of Dayton. It's funny that a population of like 1,500. There's this ninja school, right? 1,500, and I think they had 15 or 16 churches. So, but anyway, we would do this, these big seminars and stuff, and we would break for lunch or dinner or whatever, and people would, go and congregate around these restaurants, and a bunch of us found this deli. It was inside of a grocery store just outside of town. So everybody would come back from the seminar, or I'd come back from lunch break or dinner break, and where'd you eat? And we would always say, we went to the Iga grocery store. Iga? What the hell are you talking about? Well, it was our little play on words. For those of you not in the United States or not near some of these remnants of, I think they got started in the 40s, 50s, something like that, right? They're actually IGAs, International Grocers of America, but the sign says Iga, so it was the place, and they had this deli in their cold cut area and whatnot, where you could order, handmade sandwiches and stuff way back in the day. So anyway, James reminded me earlier that just outside of our town, in a little burg farther down, not that we're not in a little burg, but it's a littler burg than the burg that we're in, right? There's an Iga grocery store there. So anyway, so who do we have, James? Who's on?
So far, Trinity, Jared, Dave Fletch.
Awesome. Trinity was just in for a couple of days as an early Father's Day, and to get some training in for herself. So, and I made her cry during last week's Mikkyo program. What a bad dad. Anyway, I didn't make her cry. The lessons made her cry. We'll deflect to that. It's like slamming your partner to the floor. I didn't hurt him. Gravity in the floor did. Anyway, all right, cool beans. So again, welcome to my regulars, and so we'll just dive into this, right? So again, when we're setting out to accomplish something, right? It could be we're trying to get a handle on a skill. We're trying to get a handle on a technique. Could be something we want in life, right? I'm gonna stay oriented to ninjutsu. Now, if you're listening in and you're a martial artist, in a different style, don't worry about it, right? Or if you're not a martial artist but you found us and you're getting value, but you're in dance or you're in gymnastics or you're in scrapbooking or whatever, right? I'm gonna use the martial arts analogy because that's what we do. Anyway, there obviously we can do whatever we do, right? But conveniently, coincidentally, fortuitously, any other $50 words I can throw out of this $5 mouth? So we have this stuff that comes part and parcel with those techniques, with those skills, with those lessons, right? There's a very important lesson that comes out of our lineage, Koteki Ryoda. Okay? Koteki Ryoda. Ko is tiger, right? So Koteki, the tiger below, Ryoda, the dragon above. And I'm sure you've seen these scrolls, whether they're in martial arts supply places or you saw artwork online. Everybody in the martial arts, is all jazzed by tigers and dragons and cobras and oh my and whatever. But on these depictions, there's a tiger that's standing on like a rock or a plateau or some sort. Sometimes it's surrounded by water, sometimes not. Sometimes it's just bamboo and those kind of things. But the tiger is low on the scroll and it's looking up and roaring, right, at this dragon. Remember, Asian dragons are serpent-like, right? That doesn't make them evil, right? It's actually the opposite of European dragons. But it's coming out of the clouds, and it's surrounded very often with flames, and it's roaring at the tiger. And if you know what to look for, or you can just kind of soften your gaze a little bit when you look at this, what you see is the yin yang. Now, it's not a circle because you've got this long rectangular painting or tapestry of some sort or whatever. But if you follow the tail of the tiger around through its body and then its head going up and roaring in that direction, and then you follow the dragon down and around as it's roaring at the tiger, right? It completes that serpentine or S. That's the dividing line in the Omyodo, or in the yin yang, as most people know it, right? It's yin yang, not yin and yang, right? Ding. So anyway, this is a really important piece within our traditions because it points to two sides of training and two sides of success for a warrior, right? Remembering that the Bushi class was a very high class group, right? I know everybody wants to gravitate toward Musashi, and he was this dirty, unkempt guy that walked around, but and who's gonna say something about somebody that can kill you, right? But just like Oda Nobunaga, right? The shogun. Well, he wanted to be shogun of all of Japan. He was trying to unite Japan before the Tokugawas came in and unified Japan. Tokugawa was actually one of Nobunaga's retainers. He was one of his generals. And but Nobunaga, man, I think he'd give Musashi a good run for his money. Although Musashi was a Ronin, right? But anyway, they were very, very high class, And so samurai engaged in things like poetry and, often the ability to read and write and painting and flower arranging and whatnot, as a counterbalance, right, to the martial skills. And so this Koteku Yoda, right, points to these two realms where a warrior, at least as I was taught to be one by Hatsumi Sensei, and that is passed down in the scrolls of our lineages, success skills need to be had on both sides. Sometimes the skills are opposite. Sometimes they're the same, as in the case of accomplishing or developing, right, the skill set or the attaining the goal that you're trying to attain, right? So a lot of you know this. You've been on lots of these episodes, but for the folks that are joining us for the first time, you need to make sure that they're caught up and don't feel like they're left out or there's an inside joke or something like that, right? So Ko, the tiger realm, represents our combat skills. They represent that side of the warrior. When people think of warrior, they think of warfare, which is fine, right? But they think about that exclusively. And especially those who only focus on techniques and fighting and being the tough guy, that's where they hang out, right? I know I did for a long time, and it was because I needed it, right? Based on the way I grew up and things that happened. A lot of you know the stories, but I dwelled over there for a long time. But remember, there's another aspect to warriorship in the East, and it equates to the householder, right? The head of the house, and all the challenges and battles that they need to fight to make sure that their family is safe and there's food on the table and the roof isn't leaking and whatever, right? So, but from the perspective of warrior philosopher, warrior wizard, whatever term you want to use, that Hatsumi Sensei passed down as Jonin style ninjutsu, right? That level. Both sides are equally important. So the tiger is about what most people think of when they think of warfare, when they think of the battlefield, right? But the dragon, again, very much unlike dragons in the West, right? Breathing fire and battle ready and all that kind of stuff. That's not the Eastern dragon. The Eastern dragon represents long life, adaptability, fortuity, grace, longevity, those kind of things, right? So the dragon realm for the warrior, that other half, is being successful in society. It's being successful in everyday life when the omote of warfare, right? When an actual war is not raging. Okay. Trying to remember who said it. This guy's got some other self-defense stuff that's out there. Maybe it'll come to me. Anyway, his whole premise, he was actually on task. He was in the Navy and he was on task to, James, maybe you know who this is. He was on task to be a Navy SEAL, and he had a catastrophic injury during training, and it just totally screwed that career. It's not Tim Allen. That was a comedian. Do you know who I'm talking about? I don't know. It'll come to me. And if not, well, we can all look it up, right? Anyway, he actually wrote a book that he used this as the title, right? Or part of this is the title. And the point is that when people say that fighting isn't the only option, right? Usually, right, the quote unquote peaceful people, my thoughts on peaceful people, Only those who are strong enough to do what needs to be done can choose peace. But either way, right? They would say that violence is never an option, which is bullshit. But he leads off with violence is rarely the only option. But when it is, it's the only option. And so there's this idea of, look, most of the time we're not slaying dragons. Most of the time we're not defending against somebody trying to break into our house. Even soldiers, most of the time you are not on the battlefield, right? You may be deployed for a year or two or whatever, but out of a 5-year, minimum 6-year stint these days, maybe it's 8. Anyway, 6 when I was in, so I think now it's whatever it is, right? That's still nothing, right? You're doing garrison duty, or you're playing soldier out in the field or whatever, but you're not ducking bullets and sending mortar rounds in the bad guy's direction, right? So, but there's this balance, and we need to be prepared for both. And this is where a lot of people get tripped up. And I'm going to set the folks that want to do martial arts or want to fantasize about being a warrior because they feel weak. I'm going to set them aside, right? We'll talk about them some other time. I'm talking to the folks that get tripped up because they get hung up on the tough guy thing, and then they don't understand why they don't have that many friends, or they don't understand why their kids are terrified of them, or they don't understand why life feels like it feels, right? Because we're missing skills, right? And I know a lot of folks think these are, old philosophies that don't count anymore, but Hatsumi Sensei didn't think so, right? He's the one that told me that, and I'm not there yet, but told me that ninja have a duty to be rich. Right? You have a responsibility to be able to be as powerful as possible so that you can take care of as many people as possible and handle as many different types of situations as possible, right? But this is the side that trips most people up, right? So anyway, we'll keep on moving. I see the numbers are going up, down. Any comments or questions or anything, James, before I do a Moguri and dive into this?
Dave just said we have Iga in my town. And
Awesome. Sounds like a song. Iga in my town. See why I'm not making music and being famous that way?
And Trinity said it's yin yang. I'm sure I just completely butchered that.
Yeah, she's doing Chinese.
Yeah, in the original Chinese Mandarin pronunciation.
Yeah, she likes showing off. That's yin yang.
Yin
Yang. Yeah. In Japanese, it's in and yo.
Cool.
In and yo.
Much easier.
Probably why I gravitated toward Japanese. And actually, those two things, yin yang or yin yo, actually describe two sides of the same mountain. Right? If you look at the kanji, right, they describe two sides of the same mountain. One side, excuse me, gets more light than the other. So one is light more often, right? Has more lush growth and things like that. And the other side, because of the way the sun is relating or relative to the mountain, right, based on the Earth's surface and all that kind of stuff, right? The other side is darker. So it's really relating to these things. And this is where a lot of people, again, get tripped up because they think it's an either or. kind of thing, right? But it's the same mountain, just like it's the same warrior. This is not an either or equation. People can choose whatever they want, but if we're looking at mastery, if we're looking at really being the thing that, if we're trying to be like Hatsumi Sensei, if we're trying to be like Takamasa Sensei, if we're trying to be like these martial masters, it's not an either or. Okay. So anyway, I keep sliding my notes over, but I already used what I needed on my notes. So anyway, so I'm gonna use two perspectives here to lay the groundwork for this, and you choose the one that best suits you. Okay. And I definitely want to lead this off by saying there is no right or wrong answer. There is only your answer, because that's the one that matters. Okay. We're going to be talking about this process for accomplishing and things, and to get off the hope train, right? Not that hope isn't there. Okay. I'll position that as we go, but people use hope and luck as strategic planning, right? As their strategy, right? When we win the lottery, I'm going to, okay, what else you got? Okay, because to me, that's icing on the cake. And it's already been proven that people with shitty budgeting skills will piss away that money, just like everything else. Okay, everybody thinks that money's the answer, right? They just buy more things, bigger things, and then they can't see things big enough, right? Taxation gets people, and now we're going to move into corruption. And I'm going to borrow a phrase from Warren Buffett. I would rather be the payer than the payee, because as the payee, I'm a ward of the state. I have to jump through hoops and loops to keep getting the freebies. So I'd rather pay in than to depend on it, because what most people don't know is that every year the federal and the state governments, the legislatures, vote on the budget for those things. And since they're not constitutionally guaranteed, at any time they could stop. Now, most are not going to stop it, because the people that use that are not going to vote in that direction, right? So I'm not knocking it. I've been on it, right? But I was on it when the slogan for our state's department was to break the chain of dependency. And I don't know what their slogan is today, but I think it's to help cinch up the chain of dependency. So, but anyway, right? And I don't want to hear any financial arguments from anybody who doesn't have a degree in economics. Zero. Okay? Because all I get are opinions, and I'm not playing that game. Anyway, all right. So, and that, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, falls under the Ninja no Kyomon, the 8th gate in the Ninja no Hachimon. Okay? Studying more than just how to do a Ganseki Nage or an Ichimonji no Kata. Okay? So here's the ground rules, right? Or not the ground rules. Here are the two focal points, right? And this comes down to why somebody might train in the martial arts, or might train in Ninjutsu specifically. Okay, one is to be a black belt in Ninjutsu, or to be a black belt in the martial arts, which is really vague, right? Which one? Right? Because if you're just jumping around, I've seen way too many people that stay in the white belt levels. They're like a perpetual beginner because they keep starting all over again. I've had people that have contacted me about training and ask if they could keep their black belt from their other art. I say yes, but you can't wear it here because you're not a black belt in Ninjutsu. Because it's obvious when somebody communicates with me where their focus is. But number one, again, there's no problem with this. Okay. Number one is I want to be a black belt in Ninjutsu. Okay. I'm not giving you a third option this time, right? So, but I'm giving you two different things that it's going to be different. It's going to be difficult to do a hybrid, no matter what mental gymnastics ego tries to do. Okay. So option A, option number one, option ET, right, is I am training to become a black belt in ninjutsu. And I'm just stopping at Shodan, but it could be Nidan, it could be Godan, it could be Shihan, it could be Dai Shihan, whatever. Okay. Option two is I am training to be able to protect myself and my family to the best of my abilities. Okay. And I think ninjutsu can help me with that. Can allow me to do that. Okay. They're two completely different things. Okay. But here's the thing. When you start running the process, you need to be clear about that one, what that thing is. Okay. Because that's where your hope lies. That's where your inspiration lies. That's your vision. That's the target you're aiming for. Get all wishy-washy on this side, and you fall under the, what's that saying that Zig Ziglar had? If you aim at nothing, you'll hit it every time. Right? So this is not a time for vagueness. Right? So what is it that we want? Okay. The reason for that is the plan is going to be different. Okay. Could there be crossover? Yes. But the plan will be different. Right. And I'll explain that in a little while. So my dog's getting all excited. I think maybe my wife is home. Who knows? Anyway, so if you hear some barking, he's in my office. So in our Mikkyo, we have these two mandala, right? The Taizokai mandala and the Kongokai mandala. Those are the names in Japanese, right? If you want them in Sanskrit, you have to go look them up. Okay. So, but the gist of these two mandala, okay, because they're going to look different between Shingon and Tendai, but the gist of them is that this goal that we're talking about is related to the Kongokai. Right. I'm going to need to let him out of my office. Come here. And that's why he's not normally in my office. So anyway, so this vision, this big picture, this grand scheme kind of thing, this is what the Kongokai points to, right? So the Kongokai represents, for lack of a better term, God's eye view of, or the universe's viewpoint on things. So everything looks like it's in order and it's kind of divided up, and everything relates to everything else, and right. So it's really drawn back. So what you see are processes and interactions and things like that. So that's one side, and that's where that hope resides, right? Because once we have one, right, I hope I make it there before I'm dead. I hope my teacher sticks around. Whatever, right? I hope I have what it takes. Okay. And this is the thing that drives us. Okay. The reason I gave you two different paths is because the fuel, the energy is the same, but what's fueling is different. Right. So passion and fear are both the same type of energy. They both motivate action. But they drive things very differently. Okay. One drives somebody towards something, and one drives somebody towards something, but away from something else. Okay. So the person who wants to be a black belt in ninjutsu is driven by passion, right? Desire. Okay. They want to have this thing. And there are a whole bunch of things underneath that, right, that we're not going to go into. That this episode is not about those things, right? It's about the process. Okay. the person who wants to be able to protect themselves from violence, protect others, right? That was my path, right? Getting a belt of any color was incidental, right? And I actually averted it for like the first 2 years of my training. I stayed a white belt, right? I avoided testing, anything like that, because I was a military cop, and it was all about that kind of knowledge and ability and skill and training and whatnot. It wasn't until a teacher helped me reframe the belt things for my mindset, which was your belts tell the teacher what level you should be at, what you should know, what you should be working on, and where you're heading, right? So they're able to help you better. Okay. So, okay, fine. But that was my driver. That doesn't have to be anybody else's driver. It was just mine, right? Because, and a lot of you know my backstory, the violence that I had experienced, witnessed, and whatnot in the world, and what drove me to law enforcement, security, protector, martial arts, all those kind of things, right? So I chose these two things because the driver is different, right? But once we have what it is that we're looking for, or that we're trying to gain, the why of the training, right? What we think this will get us to, what we're trying to get out of it, whatever. Okay, that's the Kongokai view. That's this big picture. It's the vision, again, whatever you want to call it, right? The other mandala, the Taizokai mandala, right? The Garbadatu, right? The Taizokai mandala. See, Japanese is way easier, right? So it represents the day-to-day. It represents the task work. Okay, there are images on all the images on there represent potentials, not processes. Okay, so it's more the material realm, and so again, it's the day-to-day, right? What am I working on? What's next? How is this positioned within the curriculum? As a teacher, how should it be positioned in a lesson plan? Those kind of things, right? But how do I do that? Okay? How do I do that? Right? Well, one way that it gets done is the teacher gives you the lesson plan, or gives you a workbook, or gives you the requirements. I know a lot don't. And then everything gets really, really subjective, right? Personally, I don't think that's helpful, but I also don't think it's helpful because that often comes from the premise that some people will get it, some people won't, and that's universal justice. I understand that that's true to an extent, but if I lean into that, then I'm writing off a whole lot of people that may be able to be helped if the process was just different, right? So anyway, so we've got the Kongokai on one end, the thing that we're aiming for, right? And then we've got this thing on the other end, which is where I am right now, today, in this moment, right? What am I working on? What should I be working on? How should I be working on it? And like any given technique or skill, right? Some I'm just being introduced to. Like I didn't know them up to this point. Just being introduced to. Some I'm working on, but right? Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. There's no consistency. I'm fixing this, I'm fixing that. I have to remember every time I do it. I have to remember, okay, I have to step back at a 45-degree angle. I have to do kinagash. I have to, okay? And then other skills, I'm polishing, right? I'm polishing. And that can look a bunch of different ways. Other skills I have dojo, based on dojo standard. Okay. I don't think about it. I can do it, that kind of thing. And other skills, I can do it in my sleep. somebody sneaks up behind me, says boo, right? And I shift around. I'm shifting around in something under duress that looks like one of the kamae as my brain is racing to sort out the situation. Okay? Now, during the polishing thing, these other two can be put in there, but the polishing, again, what are we aiming for? Because what it looks like on my realm, it's going to look different on somebody else's, right? So the realm of I am training to keep my family safe against anything that could come at us, as opposed to I am training to earn each successive belt until I attain the level of black belt that I want. Okay? I don't know if everybody got the email that I sent out yesterday for Father's Day, and then again today I have to send another one out to remind people that the doors are closing soon. But I wrote a book a long, long time ago called The Karate Myth, and that's what it was based on. The premise of the Karate Myth is everybody believes that just because you have a black belt, or that anybody who has a black belt can teach you how to not get beaten, broken, or killed on the street against somebody who doesn't give a shit about your martial arts belt. Okay? And that's absolutely not true. The black belt means that you have passed certain criteria, just like a university degree or a high school diploma, right? You've passed certain classes with an acceptable grade to allow you to get that paper. That's all it means. Okay. I understand. People should be proud that they accomplish certain things, right? But it's different for somebody to want to get a college degree as opposed to somebody looking forward to a specific career field and asking the question, do I need degrees for that? If so, what's the minimum level and in what? It's very different. It's very different. Okay. So here's the process. Well, you know what? Let me do that. I'll tell you a little thing here about the way the Goma is the Japanese pronunciation of the Indian Homa, Homa, right? It's in the Vedic traditions. Homa just means fire, right? And it represents both passion and drive and commitment and energy and those kind of things, but it also represents the destructive qualities of fire that burns up impurities, that burns up waste, and it burns up things that get in the way. Okay, so when we do a Goma, there's a fire, right? But we're not meditating on the fire, right? There's this process that we're working, okay? And the process is I give everybody what in Japanese is called a gomaki, right? Gomaki, which is a stick key, right? For the Goma. It's a gomaki, right? And they write out their goal on this thing. Now in Japan, you can get different sizes and whatnot, and then they give you this paper that you fill out and they wrap that around and whatever, right? So, but in Japan, for those donations, you also get the plaque to take home, and I've got two of those. Anyway, so you write out this goal, right? And when we do it, the only rule is that the goal has to be something that you will achieve in the next 12 months, 365 days. So there's a deadline put on it, which is a key ingredient that most people don't put in their goal setting, right? That's why shit takes so long, right? There's a deadline, because the rule of time management is whatever time you give yourself, it's going to take that long plus 20%. Because in the beginning, you didn't account for obstacles and whatnot that you didn't know would pop up. Like when I established my goals for the Academy January 1st of 2020, I had no idea that a couple of months later, we'd be shut down, gone virtual and all that for nearly 2 years. Right. So anyway, so you establish that, and then you do this very important thing. There are these tasks that we're doing in real time that are also symbolic of the things that we need to do once we leave that seminar or that practice between now and when the goal is realized. Okay. What we do is we act those things out. But here's the process, right? The process in English is called reverse planning or strategic backwards thinking. Right? What the hell does that mean? I just told some the other day on one of my videos, somebody, what was it, a Whiteboard Wednesday, James? I made the statement that the problem is not the problem is the way you think about the problem, right? Because the way you think about the problem is how you're going to go into motion to fix it, right? So it's not that you don't have a problem, but the way you think about it changes everything. Well, anyway, this guy said, just more of that dumbass ninja double talk. Whatever. I just, I don't respond to any of those things, but it was just funny. It was one of those things that made me laugh. So anyway, so there is this reverse engineering, right? Which is the way the curriculum at my academy was designed. Okay. How many how many lunge punches should a student throw at least by Shodan to be really, really, really good at ski, so that when they hit something, there's bite to that and they don't break. Okay. Well, statistically speaking, in all sports or physical activity endeavors, it's 100. So guess what for Musha Dori? Guess what for Muso Dori? Guess what for, right? So anyway, so what I did was I established the skill sets, partly based on my own experience on the street, and partly because I was borrowing the curriculum from two of my teachers at the time. And those things obviously were based on what I was trying to do, right? Survive the streets. And so I started with that as the abilities. And actually I started at Nidan and then backed up from there, because in our curriculum, Nidan is the level where I believe that a student can defend against any average attacker on the street, not some trained killer, not some martial arts master, whatever. The average attacker on the street throwing whatever the hell they want. It's a single attacker, unarmed, that kind of thing. Okay. And then we go from there. Right. So Nidan then was the baseline. And then Shodan is making sure that they have their skill sets that would allow for us to do the work between Shodan and Nidan to make sure that those skills were street ready. Okay. So, and then it just got reverse engineered all the way back to white belt. Okay. And that's what we're looking at. Okay. So this reverse planning is, we start with the goal. And again, this is why I said you had to pick one, right? I want to have a black belt in Ninjutsu, which only requires that I fulfill knowledge-wise and physical ability-wise the technique and skill standards and knowledge, if some of that stuff's in there as well, right, required to get the belt. Being able to protect myself and my family from anything that might come at us, that isn't going to just be limited to skill sets. I mean, it is, but rank isn't even rank's not a consideration. Okay. It might be involved, but it's not a consideration. Okay. Because I'm not trying, the goal is not to earn a brown belt. The goal is not to earn a 3rd degree black belt. The goal is not to get stabbed multiple times by some asshole who breaks into my house and I'm trying to protect my wife from my grandson or whatever. Okay. So it's not the same. Okay. One, proper execution of technique and skills. Fulfill standards. get the award. The other one doesn't matter what your freaking belt level is, right? The goal is to stay out of jail, to stay out of the ER, and to stay out of the morgue, or to stay out of a mental state where you can't get the memory out of your head of, your loved one being sliced and diced or killed in front of your eyes or whatever. And they're different motivations, right? So, but it doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it doesn't matter which one you chose, right? What does matter is that you're being authentic and honest, okay? And if you're trying to do the hybrid thing, which is the primary? You know which one it is, right? So here's the way it works, right? Here's the goal. And then what do I need at each level, okay? And so if we did this, there's a system that I use at the academy for developing systems. It's a system for developing systems, okay? So what this does is it's not really about the task work. It's about the management side of things and the assessment of where we are, okay? So I'll give you an example. One of them is the dojo cleaning system that we have, okay? And so what we have is a list of 5 stages, okay? So this is only going to work for those of you who are on video. Those of you who are on audio only, I apologize. But what I'm going to do on a piece of paper is I'm drawing a vertical line on a piece of paper, just a small notepad here, okay? And then in the middle of that, I'm going to make a crossbar. And then at the top and bottom, I'm going to finish off the I-beam, okay? That kind of thing, right? And then in between the top and the middle, right in the middle of there, I'm going to make a line. And between the middle and the bottom, I'm going to make a line, right? So we've got 5 stages, okay? So then what ends up happening is the one in the very, very middle, okay? This one, the exact middle, right? That first one that I drew, right? Left or right doesn't really matter. I'm going to write the number 0, okay? 0, okay? And then the bottom line, the crossbar at the bottom, next to that, right under the 0, I'm going to write -10. And then that middle line between middle and bottom, I'm going to write -5. Okay. So it looks like that for those of you who are on video. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same thing above the 0. So the one at the very top gets a +10, and the one between the 0 and the +10 gets a +5. Okay. And so what I do is, again, the system is for quantifying subjective things, like what is clean, right? So what I had to do was define what clean means here. And the reason for that is some people are clean freaks, and what I needed was for my SWAT, it was originally named when I was still a Shidoshi, so Shidoshi's Wing and Talon, or Sensei's Wing and Talon, volunteer group of students, to be able to, when it was their duty day, to come in, and it shouldn't take them more than 20 to 30 minutes max, and that's doing the daily things and hitting one of the weekly and or monthly things for cleaning, right? So that's just one of the responsibilities besides answering the phone and helping new students and being an instructor's helper and stuff like that, right? So some of these people might be clean freaks where they're too meticulous, and it's going to take them 2 hours. Well, not 2 hours. Okay, you need to get it done because the dojo, right? There's class stuff. There's other things to be done, right? Other people, well, they're just the opposite. Let's just say their definition of clean and mine didn't come out of the same dictionary. Okay, so I had to make sure that it was defined, right? So at +10, what I do is I write out, the bathrooms, right? The floors are, right? These kind of things, right? I've got, I think, 5 or 6 points that are in there that just kind of cover the whole thing, right? And then like trash cans are empty, new liner, that kind of thing. Okay. So it's very, very, very simple, right? And then I drop all the way down to 0. And what does absolutely unacceptable look like? Okay. So, well, that should be exactly the opposite of what I put at plus 10. So minus 10, exactly the opposite, right? So what's average or acceptable if we're really, really busy, right? So half of these things are done, half of them are not, or all of them are done, but on a scale of 1 to 10, somewhere between 6 and 10. So they got done and they're acceptable, but they could be better, right? And then I just split the difference between the two, right? What does minus 5 look like, right? So 1 or 2 of the things probably aren't done, or things are dirty and need to be cleaned, whatever. Okay. What's plus 5? So 70, 80% of the stuff is, to standard and whatnot. And these things are described out. And then there's just this worksheet, right, that we designed that I could give that and the page with the plus 10 to minus 10 scale. And I could give that to anybody and they could walk around the dojo and they could grade cleanliness, right? Because there's this goal, right? There's also these other things which you don't need, but what we need to know is what do we need? We need to know where we're going, but we also need to know where we are at any given point, kind of like driving someplace, right? Where if you looked at a map, you should know where you're heading, but at any given point, where you came from matters less and less. What matters is where you are and what the next couple of miles ahead involve, right? Is my exit coming up? Am I looking for this, this highway that is branching off and I need to take that? Is a, whatever. Are there detours coming up? Okay. So in the context of a dojo, you're often given the curriculum. Now, I can't vouch for everybody's curriculum that it was designed with this reverse planning or reverse engineering thing in mind. Often there's just a bunch of toys thrown in a box and you learn those and then we'll give you this color belt. Whatever. Okay. So again, if we're going for belts, that doesn't matter. Learn those things and then you're set, right? My stuff was all geared toward, again, who I'm defending against, okay, which is why there were always minimum black belt levels as I understood them. Okay, so the way this works is I have my goal in mind, and then what are some of the things that I have to have taken care of, or I have to know, I have to be able to do, right, to be able to be at that level, right? What are the things that are encompassed by that? So on the earning a black belt in Ninjutsu, there's a set of things. I mean, and whose standards are we using? If we're using the original standards that came out of Japan in the mid 80s, right? You could fit that handful of skills in my mod 1 and then some, right? So, or are you looking at something more extensive, right? Either way, right? I need to know what that is, okay? And then, so the plan's laid out. If you're a solo training student and you're learning from YouTube, you're learning from somebody's program, okay? And you're trying to earn a black belt, then it's probably best to stick with one person's program until you decide whether or not you're going to stay or you're going to do more or whatever. Because if the goal is black belt, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't really matter which program you go through. As long as it leads to that goal, it should all be good. Right? But again, let me look on the side of the not dying at the hands of some asshole, right? What do I need to know? What do I need to be good at? Okay, well, I need to be good at evasion. I need to be good at receiving and neutralizing attacks. Okay? So one is Tai Sabaki, the other one is Ukemi. Right? One I'm not getting out of the way of, or not in the same way that just flat out evasion, right, is. Okay, I should be good at breaking body parts, not mine. Okay, because my goal is not to win or lose a fight. My goal is to render the other person's body incapable of coming at me as quickly as possible. Right? I should be able to read signs of aggression. Right? So we make a list. Okay. And then within those, there's evasion. Okay. Well, how many different types of evasion are there? How many different types of parry? Whatever. Right. So, even if we just say inside, outside, forward, and back. Okay. So now I'm giving space and I'm taking space inside the fight toward his sternum, outside the fight, right? Outside the shoulder kind of thing. Right. Kick it, whatever. Okay. So you figure out what these things are, and then they get prioritized, right? What are the certain things that need to be done first? Right? I think, this is my humble opinion, as somebody who has both been in lots of different martial arts and self-defense systems, been in this art for a long, long time, and personally and professionally, been attacked by really good killers and people that were just had anger management issues or whatever, but whether they meant it or not after they caused damage didn't matter to me. So, in my humble opinion, the first thing that should come in is evasion. Okay. The first thing should be being hard, if not impossible, to hit, kick, grab, or hold on to. Okay. Now, could we put escaping things in there? Yeah. Okay. Because while I'm working on that, right, it's a good chance that he might get a hold of me. Right. So we put these things in a certain order. If they don't matter, then pick one. Okay. If it's possible to work on them simultaneously, then do that. Okay. But what we're doing with this reverse engineering is we're laying out our step-by-step plan. We're building the ladder to the roof. Okay. And so every day we have a right brain and a left brain thing going on. Right brain, Kongokai, big picture, vision, right? Based on the skills I have or the belt level that I have, I know exactly how far away from that I am. Right? And it's the thing that, I hope I can get to. And it's the thing that drives me. And it's the thing, right? And in the case of real self-protection, like against killer kind of things, right? It's the thing that I'm racing to, but simultaneously I'm running away from this other thing. That other thing is finding myself in the shit and not knowing what to do. Okay. So I have that, but the other thing I have is I know exactly what to work on. So I never feel lost. I never feel confused. Okay. And again, here are those things that trip people up, right? Either they're not clear on their goal, or they're doing this wishy-washy thing, right? Where they say it's one thing, but it's really this other thing, right? So being authentic is a big part of this. But so one part of it is this, right? And the thing that trips people up is either they don't have that vision, or they have the vision and they have a lot of self-doubt. They either don't think that they deserve it, they don't think they can make it. Right? There's just right. Hope is more akin to luck in this case. Like, I'm hoping that I can half-ass this. I'm hoping that I can pick and choose. I'm hoping that I find the right teacher that will just give me the rank. I had a guy like that. Asked him to leave the dojo because he was toxic. And he spent a lot of time, right? His primary goal was to prove me wrong, because I said, if you keep training the way you're training, you're not going to get very far. So what he did was he just contacted a whole bunch of teachers until he found a Dai Shihan that would give him what he wanted, which was the rank and the permission to test for a. Okay, people are going to do what they're going to do, right? And they think they're pretty slick about it, but those of us who have learned more than just some moves, it's just transparent, right? And I'm sure if he ever listens to this, he'll just be as pissed off as he was before I asked him to take some time off, and that turned into never coming back. So anyway, so the tripping point for them is belief, right? On the other side, without the what to do next, what do I need to do today, they get lost, or they get confused, or they don't know what they're supposed to know. They don't know, not just not where they are, but they don't know enough skills. And then what ends up happening is they keep working on the same things, and either boredom or confusion or whatever gets in the way, and then there's a problem. Okay. And that's when, in either case, from either end, they either quit, or, since warrior aspirants don't like to say that they quit, the term they use is they took time off. Okay. Well, see, I have questions for that. Did you take time off? Well, I'll see it when they come back to the dojo. Did you really take time off, or did you take time away from the dojo and you've been practicing on a regular basis with the things that you have, and you're getting information as you can? Because I understand life, right? There was one period of time where I didn't train with my teacher for 1.5 years. God, that felt like an eternity. 1.5 years. Holy shit. Right? There was a period in time, not COVID notwithstanding, that I didn't make it back to Japan for 5 years. Right? But that didn't mean that training didn't continue. Right? So are we taking time off, or, right? And if we are taking time off and we have a plan, when we come back to it, then we shouldn't have the problem of, I don't know how to get restarted. James and I had a little bit of this conversation earlier where James, had we, I don't even know how we came to that thing, but we were talking about not people not knowing. What the hell are we talking about? It was about people taking time off. Shit, it's gone. It'll be back. I promise. It'll be back. James is just like, I don't know, staring at me. Anyway, let's do this. Okay, so the 3 parts that I wanted to point out were the 2 points, right? We need to know where we're going, and we need to know what we need to do today. Okay. And of course, I need to do that thing. Okay. Remember, hope combined with strategic thinking / planning and deliberate action equals success. So I need to have both of those points. Thing I'm aiming for, right? When I say realistically, I mean being honest. Okay, not calling it one thing when it's something else, because there's one thing worse. Well, there's a lot of things worse, but one of the things that are worse than deceiving other people is deceiving yourself. If you deceive yourself, you don't have a chance. If you believe your own BS, you don't stand a chance. Okay, so where am I heading? And I've got a plan that includes the step-by-step, right? If I'm going for belts, okay, what are the techniques I need to know? What are the skills I need to know? What's the proficiency level at this level? Because it shouldn't be the same as it was for a white belt to go to the next level. Okay, they're brand new. Okay, somebody who let's say somebody entered our mod 3 or mod 4, they've got 4 to 6 months. If you're in the dojo, it's 6 months per module. So they've got a year to a year and a half under their belt at that point. So yes, they're learning new kamae, they're learning new strikes, new fist, they're learning, new techniques, new applications and stuff like that. But their learning curve should be way faster, way shorter than it was when they were in mod 1 or early mod 2. Shouldn't be the same, right? If it's the same, then somebody isn't developing, they're not progressing, they're collecting. Right? It's the difference between a river and a lake. A lake is a big old puddle. Yes, it has tributaries coming in and going out from it, but it's a big bowl of water. Easiest way to describe it. Rivers move, right? The water coming through that same water will never pass that same space ever again. It's not just churning in space. It's not just ebbing and flowing from one side to the next, whatever. Right? It's kind of like money, right? When you're planning around money, you should plan around lakes and rivers. Rivers are flow. Money comes in, money goes out. And there should be lakes. Some of that stuff tributaries should be filling the lake so that you have stuff for a rainy day. Okay? Or figuring out how you're going to up that. But either way, right? And again, I'm using martial arts stuff here, but if it was to get a new car, if it was to upgrade my life, to make more money, to whatever, right? What do I need? Okay? What do I need to do today? Okay? Sensei, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Did you do anything today? That tells me whether or not you're even training. Right? I don't know, man. I've looked everywhere for a new job. How many applications did you fill out this week? How many did you fill out today? How many did you fill out this month? But there's nothing out there. That's bullshit. Is why I'm not liked very much. I'm here for people that want solutions and they want to move and they want progress. They're focused on performance and they're focused on change and achievement, not just idly doing. Okay? So again, things that trip up somebody who they either don't have enough or whatever is they don't know what they're supposed to be doing today, or they don't have enough material. So, and they've done the same stuff the same way so many times that kind of lost interest. Well, no shit. Okay. But you should be really fucking phenomenal with those few techniques and skills. Because according to Hatsumi Sensei, you only need one. And if you work the process, you'll end up with an infinite number. And that's coming from somebody just like Hatsumi Sensei, who didn't have a teacher near them. Remember, he rode a train overnight, Friday night after he closed his clinic, trained the weekend, took a shit ton of notes, took a train home Sunday night, Monday morning, slept on the train in both directions, got off the train, opened his clinic, put on new clothes, that kind of stuff before he opened his clinic, and then did his week, right? I've never lived near a teacher. Closest I've ever lived to my teacher, to any given teacher that I had, was 9 hours driving one way. And I know how that makes me sound like an old man. I drove uphill both ways in the snow in July. But it's true. It's true. If I sped, I could get it down to 8. Or if I let an ex-wife drive, we could get it down to, I don't know, 7.5 or 8. But yeah, that cost us a lot one time. I woke up to a traffic stop. Anyway, and all she said after the cop was done and started pulling out, we just bought this new car. She went, man, this thing is smooth at 80. Holy shit. And the speed limits were not 65 and 70 at that point. Not even close. Anyway. Yeah. So what do we got, James? Questions, comments? I'm full of shit. Whatever. What do we have?
Chris McLaurin asked, is it a chance that someone starts off as 1 then find number 2?
Yep. I will say, though, it's more likely that the person who started off wanting belts shifts in the other direction than it is the person worrying about being killed by somebody shifts toward belts, like wanting the belts. It's not that doesn't happen, because, once ego gets stroked a couple of times, the addiction can really set in. But from my experience with students, not just myself, with students and peers coming up through my career, it's more likely for the person who wanted to get wanted to be a black belt in martial arts to recognize, holy shit, we're easy to kill. As human beings, we're friggin' easy to kill. So I better get to figuring out how to become harder to kill, regardless of my belt rank. Okay. And that person that's aiming for that hopes to God and all that's mighty and all that's just in the universe, they don't need to wait until they're a black belt or a Nidan or a Godan or whatever before they can protect themselves against a murderer. They want it, need it, and should want it and need it as fast as humanly possible without cheating the system, without, bullshitting themselves. Because that's what they need. It's kind of like when I go in, as a matter of fact, I think it's going to be recorded, but I'm going to be on a podcast coming up for a group called Baratus Defense tomorrow, and the gist of the topic is on workplace violence, but the director of Baratus that runs this thing, Mark Boer, he wanted it from the perspective not of me going in and working for the corporation, but it's for employees who work for companies that if they have anything, it's just so HR can tick the boxes that you've received some bullshit training. And so how do you prepare yourself to be able to, survive a situation like that? So when they're not supplying good training, how do you get the right training? So along those lines, right? Like when I go into a corporation, when I'm talking to a corporation, they often ask me like what my hourly rate is. I don't have an hourly rate. I charge per project. It's value-based. Okay. Here's how much you'll be saving over the next 5 years. Here's what you will lose if an incident occurs. I charge 10% of that. Well, why don't you charge for hours? Because hours is going to screw one of us. Because for me to make a decent living, I have to string a project out. And a lot of consultants do, right? But from a security perspective, you need this shit in place as quickly as possible. So I put it in place. It's worth this much. Why should I be penalized for being that good where I can get it in place in 3 to 6 months or less, depending on what the project is, right? So, but people aren't used to thinking that way because they're used to thinking like time clock. Here's my hourly rate. I punch in, I punch out. Yeah. I've worked in those arenas, right? Yeah. There's a thing in the security world called theft of time. That means you're standing around bullshitting and getting a paycheck for it instead of doing the work that's supposed to be done, assuming that the employer can afford it because, well, he's in business. Yeah. Okay. Again, different mentality, but we'll get off of that one. So yes, Chris, it is highly likely. Now, at one point in my training, my attention shifted toward not belts, but rank. And I'll tell you why. It was completely self-serving, but it still fed the original agenda. My original agenda was always to be able to survive violence. And the more I knew, the longer I was a cop in security, bodyguard work, private investigations, the longer I was in this training and teachers were sharing certain things, the more research I did, the more holy shit moments I had that kept moving that target that I was aiming for. But a bunch of years ago, and this actually was, a decade and a half before Hatsumi Sensei actually retired, I started becoming concerned. Okay. Actually, when was it? When did I get my Godan? 2000. I got it in 2000. And I was still resisting then. But people started talking that Hatsumi Sensei and he started it, but they started talking about, one, he's not getting any younger. Two, he's getting close to the age that Takamatsu Sensei was when he died. And three, we don't know what a new Soke, because at that point, everybody thought that he was just going to appoint one for all 9 schools. We don't know what standards they're going to implement. Like, can you not get this upper level training, right, if you don't have your Godan certificate, if you don't have your Shidoshi? Because I didn't give a shit about any of that stuff. Okay. And then I started thinking, holy shit, there's a lot of this stuff that, from multiple attackers, being able to sense danger, intention, all kinds of stuff that would be really fucking helpful when you're dealing with and then there's stuff even above that, because that's Saki, right? There's a level above Saki that's called Kuji, and I don't mean the 9 cuts. Kuji, and then there's Juji above that. But those are sensing danger when intention doesn't exist, right? And that's fucked up. But there's some people out there that, they're assassins, they're sociopaths, whatever, where they don't project anything. It's just a cold, just doing business, dude. Okay. And I wanted access to that kind of stuff. And the more people started talking, the more I thought, shit, if for no other reason than for access, I better work on these things. And that's what put me on the path to getting that. And then the rest is history, because I was see, as soon as I got my Shidoshi, my Godan, I didn't give a shit again. My focus was on not dying and protecting those I care about or choose to protect. Okay. And then I ended up in Japan. This was after that 5-year hiatus kind of thing. I ended up in Japan, and Nagato Sensei strikes up a conversation with me, and almost confused me with the wrong person. And so, but anyway, asked me what my rank was and when I got started. And he did the math in his head, and oh no, this is not good. You should be a higher rank. I will talk to Hatsumi Sensei. And I said, no, it's not necessary. And Nagato Sensei told me to literally shut up. This is not your concern. He can kick my ass. This is me shutting up. So that trip, in one sitting, Hatsumi Sensei jumped me from 5th Dan to 8th Dan. Everybody's patting me on the back and all that. And I'm like, what the fuck? It was time-based. Nobody tested me on skill other than looking at me from across the room. This was the belief that everybody that's been in training for the same amount of time should be the same rank. Your skills were going to prove themselves to everybody else that knew what to look for. And there was also this belief, and Hatsumi Sensei was stating this thing for decades: bad teachers deserve bad students, and students that are only looking for cheap or black belt or a connection to Japan or whatever, and not quality, deserve bad teachers. And that always rubs people the wrong way, because I'm the asshole for mentioning it, but doesn't mean it wasn't there, right? So I got 8th Dan, and then I was doing one of my own seminars, and several other 10th Dans were there, and they whip out this 10th Dan certificate on me. And here they had gone behind my back, and all it took to get a 10th Dan at that point was for 3 other Judan to write letters to Hatsumi Sensei recommending somebody for Judan. While I appreciate my friends showing faith in me, see where my focus was? Okay. It was empty. And then I went through the beyond levels, and then I got Daishihan thrown at me and whatever. Okay. But maybe part of the feeling about the rank being empty was that wasn't one, it wasn't my thing. It wasn't my jam, right? But the other side of it was I knew what went behind it. Okay? So I've always been kind of left to have to sort this out based on my knowledge of violence and or how these lessons can be applied to make my day-to-day life better and those kind of things. And I'm not talking about Ganseki either. I'm talking about, the success side of things. Because the ranking things, but if somebody is looking for rank, they're going to be asking questions relative to rank. They're going to be asking, they're just going to be asking about those kind of things, or they're going to be honing in on the things that are on a given in a packet or on a list or whatever, regardless of where they get it from, because what's important is the learning of the skills so that I can get that thing. If you did that around Hatsumi Sensei, you'd be really happy, because Hatsumi Sensei would just like promote you. And then you'd owe him $300. There you go. And sometimes, if he was trying to really make a point, he'd look at you and go, "You happy now?" Smile, pat you on the back. Okay. But anyway, right. I'm obviously I'm biased because I lean in one direction, but over the years, I've come to understand that, some people are going to end up being able to protect themselves at least to some degree, no pun intended with the degree, because they learned some stuff. But most of them are going to be mixing it with the oh shit, do what's already hardwired, right? But anyway, my attention did shift to belts, but it was to make sure that I didn't get shut out on upper level training if that occurred, because that was a possibility. And again, this is just strategic thinking, looking at the big picture, because it wasn't for the rank, it was what the rank could get me. And then as soon as I got it, I didn't give a shit again, because I only cared enough to get it, to not get excluded from upper level secrets. Anyway, what else we got, James?
From Max over on YouTube, it's a martial art. Shouldn't the aim be competence in combat? For me, the goal is combat effectiveness. Everything else is transformation in achieving that goal.
Awesome. So he knows what his goal is. See, mine was always a balance. Mine was not just not dying at, no, not always. When I first got involved in the training, it was all about not dying, because again, episode 68, tell you the whole backstory. But once I got exposed to the philosophy from the different lineages through Hatsumi Sensei's teachings, and accidentally bumped into the Mikkyo stuff, and understood, for me, right, how I wasn't stuck with certain presuppositions or certain lessons coming up through, that this is just your lot in life and whatever, and that stuff could be changed too. And so what was being battled on that side, as one teacher described it, were the dragons of ignorance and hatred. Right. So, but there were all these other things, and then it became balanced out, which is why at Warrior Concepts, the promise I make to people combines these two realms. It takes the Koteki Ryoda skill sets and sums them up together, right? So the USP slogan, promise, or whatever that we have is master yourself, master your life, right? But the longer version is teaching you the time-tested, proven lessons necessary to create the life you've always dreamed of living, while also learning the skills necessary for protecting that life from anything that might threaten it. Okay? It's both sides. I'm not wearing a nin at the moment. It's up on our little crest up there, right? So Hatsumi Sensei taught on that a long time ago, which is where Stephen Hayes got his Toshindo system, which is ironic because he taught for decades why ninja arts would never have the do attached to it, because that's based on Zen, samurai kind of either way, right? But Hatsumi said that came in the wake of Hatsumi Sensei teaching and breaking down the two kanji, and how the toll, the blade, which is actually kisaki, but toll, right, is for our martial side, it's for the combat side, and the shin is for the dragon side, right, the life side. So it's in balance, right? And it's not stacked the way it is because the ninja values the blade over the heart. And no, the ninja develops the skills of the blade because of the heart. Anyway, what else we got, James?
That was the last one.
That was, wow. Look at that. Maybe I'm just making people ponder. Or I put them to sleep. Either way. All right. So, you know what? We're just going to wrap this one up this time, I think. James, do you have anything else to throw on top of this?
No.
All right. Well, yeah, stay tuned. And don't forget, this coming Wednesday, we have our Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday. The reveal for the topic will be sent out and posted on our platforms, YouTube, Facebook, all that kind of stuff. If you're on the email list, it'll go out. So tomorrow afternoon, somewhere around or after 2 p.m. Eastern time. Okay. And then don't forget, we go live 3 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday with the Whiteboard Wednesday. And of course, that acts as a springboard for the topic that we work on during our Friday virtual class, which is actually one of the two classes that my guys in the Ninpo Masterclass program get. So you can go over to onlineninjaacademy.com / the hell is it? Friday-virtual-training. Friday virtual training. Yeah, that's for the Friday class, but that won't be set up until just before Whiteboard Wednesday kicks off. That way people can sign up for it as soon as it's over. But you can also go to onlineninjaacademy.com / it's Ninpo Masterclass with a hyphen, right? Ninpo Masterclass is one string, and check out that program as well. Otherwise, that's it, guys. I will talk to everybody again next time. James, thank you very much again. I appreciate it. James donates his body to the cause as we do these video lessons, and he fights sleep and the dragons of ouch. I was doing outdoor work in the heat today and whatever. So anyway, that's it. I'll talk to everybody again soon. Be safe, train hard, and I'll see you next time on KUDEN. Get more of KUDEN Radio. Subscribe through your favorite podcasting site, or join our clan of serious modern warriors at onlineninjaacademy.com.